Inspiration can be defined as a sudden, brilliant, creative, or timely idea. It is the process of being mentally stimulated to do or feel something, especially something creative. As stitchers, we are endlessly inspired by the rainbow reflected in beautiful silks or cotton floss, by the texture or depth of color that can be seen in a piece of hand-dyed fabric. It is in the balance and symmetry of an antique sampler or the elegant flourish at the ends of a French alphabet letter. Ultimately, inspiration can bring us a deeper sense of fulfillment in life. It gives us purpose, a connection to others, and to something greater than ourselves. Inspiration can also be found in our stitching chair. We invite it when we sit there. It can be heard in the whisper of every stitch and glimpsed in the divine space between every breath. Let's let everybody in FlossTube land say hi. Oh, he's been having a nap on the bed. And I just got him up to come and say hi to you guys. Hi, everybody. This is Archie. I'm Jackie. Welcome to another episode of Comfort Stitching. Welcome in. Hi. It's good to see you. I feel like it's been forever since I've been here. It's really just an extra week. But oh my gosh, I have so much to tell you guys about today. Actually, let's start. Today is Saturday, November 8th, 2025. This is FlossTube episode number 24 of Comfort Stitching. I'm Jackie. That was Archie. He's 9 and a brindle colored Scottish Terrier. So some of the gray you saw in his coat, he comes by naturally. Some of it is age. So as we all are, right? I've had such a crazy busy week at work. I work at a bank. We've been short-staffed. We've had people out sick. So I feel like I should have more gray hair after this week. But anyway, you know, that happens. Life happens. Things are going on. And since I've seen you last, autumn has really hit here in my little corner of Northwest Missouri, where I live in a small town called Weston. We've had such lovely weather, although today, not so lovely. It's pretty cloudy out there, so I've got a lot of ambient lights in the room, hoping to brighten things up here. So I'm going to apologize up front about lights. I'm hoping I've got it, at least so everything will look good for you. But yeah, it's autumn. And we've seen some beautiful, beautiful color finally. Here in Missouri, it was a little late getting here. I think probably because we didn't have as much rain in the summer as we sometimes do, and the warmer weather lingered a little longer than it sometimes does. So once we finally had a little bit of cooler temperatures at night, then the color started. And with the lower sun and those amazing oranges and reds and golds in the trees, I just, every day on my way to work, I just marveled at the colors. And color is actually something I'm going to be talking a little bit about today, as well as some other things. I mentioned that I'm about a week later than usual. Some of that, I mean, just pure scheduling issues. I had some things, like I said, come up at work, and then I've got something coming up in a couple of weeks, and it just was kind of affect the filming opportunities that I was going to have. So I was really vacillating on last week filming or not filming. And once I finally made the decision that I was going to wait a week, I really ended up last weekend having some amazing conversations with some people. Just some really rich conversations that probably wouldn't have happened if I had decided to film. So I can tell you about some of that today. Some of it was about color. I had a great conversation with my friend Gretchen, who owns the shop Florilegium. Here where I live, we had just a great conversation about color. I'm going to share some of that. I got to talk to my friend Rae Niles, who is a sampler reproductionist. She had just gotten back from 2 retreats. She went to Nicola Parkman's, what was that one called? Well, it was at Swindon, which many of you probably were at. Mrs. Parkman's Academy of Needlework, that's what it was. Rae was presenting at that one, but of course she was also attending. And then after that, she went on north to Yorkshire to an Ackworth school retreat put on by the British Sampler Guild. And I was really interested in hearing about that. And so she told me about that last week. It just sounded amazing. I'm hoping that someday I can do that one. I just think, having worked on a Quaker sampler now, and we've been talking about it a lot. I'm going to talk about it today too, because I've got some new information to share. And again, that came out of a conversation last week. And I just think that would be really fascinating to be in the space, the Ackworth School in this instance, where those styles of samplers originated. And so Rae told me about that. And then I had a conversation in the afternoon. I was stitched on FaceTime with a good friend of mine, Renee. And I mean, I just love having the opportunity like that to have diverse conversations, but such enriching conversations. I hope you have people in your life that you get to have those kinds of conversations with, because they just really, really enhance everything, I think, and lead to so many different ideas. And yeah, it's just really amazing. So I have gotten a little bit more stitching done than usual because of that extra week. So I've got some stitching to share with you today, obviously. That's what we're here to do, talk about cross stitching. I want to thank those of you who are new subscribers. I know I made a plea last time for people to subscribe. Still doing that. I'm trying to reach the magic number of 10,000. Can't believe that we're so close. But if you haven't subscribed yet, I hope you will. If you're new today, please consider subscribing, give the thumbs up to the video. I mean, nothing happens when you reach a number like that other than it feels like, oh, wow, can't believe that that many people like and appreciate what I'm sharing here. But it's just kind of, it's a number that's would be cool to achieve. So if we do get there, I'm working with Barry of Stitch Folk. We've got a giveaway, a kind of a cool thing planned. So my plea for subscribers. Crazy. Anyway, I also had a couple of people reach out to me either in the comments or one via email that again sparked some of the conversation I had. So it will lead to some conversation today. Got to finish to show you that happened right after we talked last. Reading my notes down here. Progress, some information, like I said, to share. And so, yeah, let's get into it. So I want to first give you an update. Last time we talked, I had just gotten back from a retreat at the Silver Needlework store in Tulsa, Oklahoma, with Theresa Venette. She had given us a project, a seasonally related project, and then it was really fun to help her design a project. And then in the weekend, she had another group of people she was teaching that did the same thing. I don't have an update on those 2 projects that we contributed, those of us who were in attendance contributed to. We don't have an update on that, but I do have an update on the release of the sampler that Theresa gave us. And this came through the newsletter of the Silver Needle Workshop. So if you don't subscribe to a newsletter that your favorite needlework store might offer, I would highly recommend that you do, because that's where you're going to find out information first on what those needlework stores are doing. And you also see maybe new releases, new things that they're doing, or retreat opportunities too. I know people wonder, how do I find out about some of these retreats that are going on? And shop newsletters are one of those places to do. So I had showed you this chart that we were given last time. It's called Season's Greetings. And we got a kit for this. It is going to be an exclusive at the Silver Needle. And from the way things look on the Silver Needle website, this might be available as early as the end of this month, the end of November. That's kind of how I read it. So it's on, if you go to the Silver Needle website and you look for their exclusives, I just typed the word exclusive in their search box. It shows this sampler, gives a little explanation about the workshop, and says that these things, while being exclusive to the Silver Needle for a year, coming soon, hopefully by the end of November. So I know many of you were interested in that design. If you're fast stitchers, you might get some or all of it done by the holidays if you get it. So anyway, that was an update on that. Let's see. You know, I also want to tell you, I did get some haul since we've seen each other last, but everything that I got, I've already put into use. So I'm going to be showing that as we go along. And so let's start with a finish, which is not about haul, but I just felt like I wanted to get that in there while it was on my mind. The finish I have is a Barbara Anna piece that was part of a stitch along that I was doing with Sarah of the channel Sew Me Sarah, who Sarah lives in Northern Ireland. We were doing a stitch along with a Barbara Anna design called the 4 Seasons. Let me show you the chart. It was these 4 girls. I'm trying to get the light. So I've got a window to my left. I've got different lights on in the room. I've got some white towels around, so I'm reflecting light. So I'm hoping you can see that all right. It looks good on the screen. I'm hoping it looks good to you. This is the chart. We worked on these girls following the 4 seasons. Like, we started this stitch along at the winter solstice in 2024. And at the changing of all of the seasons, the official changing, like the equinox and the solstice, is when we started the rest of the girls. So in the spring, we did the spring, summer, summer. We finished up our stitch along with the autumnal girl, and I have completed her. Now, I have stitched my girls on all different colors of backgrounds. So this one is on picture this plus linen called Velt. It's showing really splotchy on my camera. It's not quite, the green splotches are not quite that distinct in real life, although they are there, but the fabric is really a little more gold than it's coming across right now. Let's see. That's a little bit more accurate to the color. So like I said, I stitched mine on all different colors. I'm going to show you all of them together. This one is 40 count, which all of mine were stitched on. 40 count with the DMC. Mostly the called for floss. I did change a couple of them just to get more contrast on this fabric. And I'm stitching with 1 floss thread over 2 linen threads. So this was such a fun one. I got her done relatively quickly in comparison to the others, I think. And I believe mostly because she didn't have as many color changes, and some of the graphic design elements in that skirt were just a little larger, so they stitched up faster. But such a fun stitch along with Sarah. This was my first experience really of a stitch along, and particularly leading a stitch along. It was a lot of fun. I think we spaced it out well following the seasons. There was plenty of time to complete each of them in the time allotted, and I loved seeing the stitching that all of you who joined us did and shared on Instagram. I just really loved it. And Sarah was the perfect partner for this because she has led a lot of stitch-alongs, participates in a lot of stitch-alongs, and she was just great. So I'm going to show you all of them now. I started with the winter one. This was on 40 count Seraphim fabric. I think the color was called Sapphire. And then the spring and summer I did on the same piece of fabric. This was a Swan Bay fabric called Mary's Sampler. Called for colors. I maybe altered one or two. And then we finish with the Autumn Girl. So I know Sarah is going to frame hers. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my finishes yet on these. Since I did them all on different colors of fabric, they're obviously individual and distinct. Maybe flat folds, maybe, I don't know. I'm going to talk over with a friend of mine who does a lot of finishing and just see what her recommendations might be of what some good finishing opportunities for those might be. So Joy, if you're listening, I want to pick your brain on those. So anyway, that's my Barbara Anna. They were housed in this Pinny and Tunny bag. Now we get to empty that out finally and put the threads back. These were just the flosses that I used on those autumn ones. I get to put everything away. I think there's something really satisfying about kitting up a project for me. I like doing that. But I also have realized I like the process of then putting the things away. It's like it totally completes the experience. Finishing probably does that for a lot of people too. I'm not having not had experience of finishing myself, and right now I'm not inclined to do so. Finishing for me, the completion of the project also includes putting the supplies back with my other supplies in my kind of supply library, if you will. And it just feels like, that's now done. And so then you can move on and make way for something different. So anyway, that was the Barbara Anna 4 Seasons Stitch Along. If you have been following along and really liked that project, that chart is available as a PDF download through Barbara Anna's Ko-Fi shop. I always put a link to that in the description box that is below this video, so I will do so again since I'm talking about it today. I try and link to the websites or information about anything that I talk about during the course of a video. I put that information below. I'm an information hound. I like to have it available. I'm a researcher, so I like to overload you with information in my description boxes. So anything I talk about, you're going to find it there. And if you don't, comment or email me. My email address is always there too. Let me know. I'm happy to try and help you with anything if you want to reach out. So that was that one. So the big finish. Then after I did that, I moved on to favorite, one of the many, I think all the stuff you work, isn't all the stuff you work on favorites? It kind of is of mine. It's a favorite for very different reasons, each one of them, whether it's the color palette or the overall design or, whatever the subject matter is, it becomes a favorite. That's why we choose to stitch on them. So what I'm going to show you now is one of my favorites. This is a sampler that I've got in this red and white bag with a little blue bling on it. So red, white, and blue. It's a patriotic design. This one is by Plum Street Samplers. It's called America 250. This one, unfortunately, not widely available yet. This was an exclusive to attendees of summer school at the Attic in August of this year. And this chart is on loan to me by a friend. And I've been working on it. Let's see. Let's see how long. When did I start? September 7th is when I started. I always make a little tag on my floss ring to say when I started something, the name of the chart, and what the fabric and fabric count are. So I always have that. So far, I'm not a person who keeps a book of days, but this is a way for me to keep track of what I've got going on. So let me show you my progress. And here we are. So you can see I've started in the upper left corner. Make sure I'm getting the eagle on there, because that's what since I've seen you last, I did, I think from that dark red motif over to the eagle. I did all of that. I really wanted to get to that eagle. Sorry, I'm moving around a lot. I want to make sure you're seeing this because it's just gorgeous. I am stitching this with some of the called for floss. I've got it on 2 rings. And some of the called for floss and some substitutions. Now, one of the questions I mentioned to you that I got a couple of really interesting questions that I'm going to talk about later on. One of them was, have I ever talked about, this was actually somebody who was newer to my channel, have I ever talked about my process for color conversions? My answer to her was, I feel like I do when I talk about each project individually, but I might talk a little bit more about color today, just as a whole. So what I have changed on this one is this kind of corally color here and a couple of the blues. And one of the reasons I changed that coral color is because I always look at the called for colors on the chart. I pull them out. In this case, I pulled the DMCs as well as the overdyed flosses, because I do that for 2 reasons. I don't automatically stitch in overdyed or DMC exclusively. But one of the things that I have learned over time, and also in some of my conversation and work with my friend Rae Niles, who, as I said, is a reproductionist, is I have come to really learn that dye lots on overdyed floss change. So in the time that it takes for somebody to design something and for it to be released, the dye lot might have changed. Maybe not, but it might have. And so that's why I pull the overdyed floss as well as the DMC. Now, this design happens to be a combination of both. It's not exclusively one or the other. The primary colors are on the left side, and it's a mixture of Weeks Dye Works, Classic Color Works, and DMC. There's no Gentle Arts in this particular called for colors. And then there's all of the DMC on this side. So when I pulled out the called for, I want to find the one that really made me change. When I pulled out the called for color for those coral colored flowers, that right there, there's an outline charted on that flower. It was Tennessee red clay. And then the fill-in color was a DMC that was a little more orangey. My Tennessee red clay was very pink. When I looked at those 2 colors together, personally, I just didn't like how they looked together. So I thought, okay, let me find something that I can replace that with. And as I was studying the chart, I realized that the blue flowers, these blue ones, do not have any outline to them. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Do these coral ones really need an outline? No, not really. I had enough contrast on my fabric, which, by the way, is a 40 count fabric. It's called Affogato, and it's by Fiber on a Whim. So I thought, okay, well, why do I even need an outline color on those coral flowers? So this just, it starts my thinking process. Why was there an outline? So anyway, did I need one? Did I not? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I went to my floss stash, and I have a lot of floss. So I'm just putting that out there. I do. I like the colors. I found in my stash a color and cotton color called Old Brick that seemed to me to be a combination of, there was some darkness in it that would give me a dark contrast when and where I needed it, as well as having the lighter color that was very close to, as you can see, the DMCs. These two were the called for DMCs. This color had both. So anyway, that's why I did that. So that's part of my thinking process when I convert something. What is it I'm trying to achieve? What's going to best serve the project and the design element that I'm thinking about changing the color to? And then, does it, if at all, affect the overall color palette? If not, great. If it complements it, great. That's what I want. If it's not right, then I'm going to go back to the drawing board and maybe choose differently. Now, in this eagle, you can see that there are some little motifs in the wings, little like quilt star motifs. Now, the called for color on that was, for those little motifs, a Weeks Dye Works color called Bark. So when I pulled that out, this is the color. It's very brown. It does have a little bit of green in it, but my skein of Weeks Dye Works Bark was pretty brown. So then when I looked at the DMC color called for, which was 3787, you can see that that's more of a soft bluey browny green. Bark, 3787, very different. And when put next to the call for color of the wings, I wanted to see those little motifs. So I chose to use the DMC. So again, that's my decision-making process. What do I use and why? Because I want to see the elements that the designer put in there. And I think that enhances the overall design. It adds interest. And it works. So all that to say is, yes, the designers have gone to a lot of trouble to choose colors that they feel are going to work well. Sometimes dye lots change. The fabric is going to affect how the color looks. Your environment is going to affect how the color looks. And then you make your decision from there. Also, I changed the green on this. So that, rather than using a called for DMC color, which I took off of my ring, I'm using, I wasn't a fan of the color with my skein of pine needles. This pine needles is the dark. I again chose a color and cotton color called Tadpole for the lighter color. It gave me more contrast. I liked how it looked. I went with that. Now, I know not everybody's confident about making color decisions like that. But if you just think about it, and hopefully you've got at least a stash of DMC that you can start playing with. I've always recommended getting the DMC color card that has the actual thread swatches on it, because you can see the full range of colors in that, at least to give you something to go by. And don't be afraid to change colors to suit your preferences. So I really, really enjoy working on this one. The symbolism in this design is, I mean, obvious. We're celebrating next year in 2026 the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I think with some of the discussions going on in this country and others, doing a little reflection and thinking about the origin of where you live and how you came to be where you are, and the country that you live in, sometimes going back to its beginnings is helpful in understanding the situation that you find yourself in presently. And like I said, I wanted to get to that eagle because for me, eagles are an important symbol. I'm interested in Native American spirituality, and eagles are like one of the highest symbols within that culture. And I thought it might just be interesting to find out, why is the eagle symbolism so important in the insignia for the United States too. And the Great Seal of the United States on June 20th, 1782, Congress adopted that symbol for the United States. After it took 6 years of discussion for them to land on that particular seal. There were 2 prior designs that were rejected, and the final design incorporated elements from 2 earlier designs. So the bald eagle on the Great Seal represents strength, freedom, and independence, which were qualities that our founding fathers associated with this new nation. And it's depicted holding an olive branch and arrows. And I've got the olive branch in there. Now I don't have the arrows because they are some straight stitches that I'm gonna wait to put in later on in my stitching process, because there's some other long and straight stitches that go into this sampler too. So in the seal of the United States, there are 13 arrows that symbol the power of peace and war, respectively, as well as the 13 original colonies of the United States. Let's see. There's a shield, the red and white striped shield with the blue. You can see it on the chest there. In the seal of the United States, there's a halo of stars above the eagle, which we don't have in this sampler. But as I said, the 13 arrows, there are on the seal 13 stripes. There are 13 olives in the seal, in that olive branch. There are not 13 here, but it's a little area to put 13 olives in that branch. And then there's also in our seal of the United States a ribbon banner that has the words E pluribus unum that come out of the eagle's beak. And what that means is out of many, one. Out of many, one, representing the union of the 13 colonies and the originating ideas of the founding of our country. Now, Native American symbolism, the eagle is revered as one of the most sacred animals, probably up there with the bison, but it was a messenger to the Creator. It's said to be the only bird an animal that can fly so high that it could connect to the Creator. A symbol of strength, wisdom, and leadership, just like we find in the reasoning for the seal for the United States. And often eagle feathers are used in sacred ceremonies to represent truth and a connection to the divine. So yeah, that eagle means a lot in this sampler as well as for many reasons. And I know at this time of the year around here, we start to see, every now and then you'll see an eagle. We don't have them here year round. They tend to be more of a northern bird, but they do start moving south for the winter, and I'm pretty close to the Missouri River where I live, and so they will follow the river looking for food, and they do come down here and nest as well. So any day that you might see an eagle, it's a good day. It's a very, very good day. So that was America 250. Now, a little update on that I saw on social media, because a lot of people would love to get their hands on this chart. And it was, like I said, exclusive to Summer School at the Attic. It's my understanding from some people who have questioned both Paulette Stewart, the designer, about it, is that they probably will release it early. Generally, when something is an exclusive for a retreat, they wait a year after the retreat, and then it goes on wide release. There's discussion about releasing this one early because of its symbolism and the anniversary being next year. But the Attic could make a decision on that as well to release it early. And from what I understand, it's under consideration, but no final decision has been made. So just keep your eye out. Again, the Attic, they do have a newsletter, but I think one of the better ways to find out what's going on at the Attic is to follow them on YouTube. Carolyn and Mary, who work at the Attic, longtime workers at the Attic, and kind of after Jean Lee's death, are now spearheading the group of the ladies at the Attic and what goes on there. They have a YouTube channel, so definitely look for that. I was watching Carolyn's latest video this morning. They're having the Autumn of Abundance retreat this weekend. Again, Theresa Venette is there, and Carolyn was showing just an amazing sampler from Theresa that the Attic is going to have as a stitch along for 2026. It's beautiful, packed full of motifs, which is the type of sampler that I love. And Carolyn also had some other new charts that they were releasing, a couple of an ornament and a couple of new things by Susan Stanley. So definitely, if you have a favorite needle workshop, or when you watch FlossTube videos and you hear some of us talk about different needle workshops, get on those websites, sign up for newsletters, watch their YouTube channel if they have one, because that's when you're going to hear about these things first. And I'm sure information will of course be released on their social media pages as well, Facebook, Instagram, and all of that. But that's, I'm sure, where they will be talking about that design once it's released. So hopefully you will be able to get it in time to at least begin stitching that prior to the anniversary. I hope so, because it's a really lovely design. I've really enjoyed stitching that, and I think you will too. So it's just so full of meaning and symbolism in that. And I have been just reflecting about our history. It gives me an opportunity to just pause and think about things while I'm working on that. I do that with anything that I'm working on. But when you have a subject matter like that, it definitely does. So where do I want to go next? I think I'm going to show you, well, I'll just show this the way I have it. No, switching around. A sampler that I worked on that you haven't seen in a while. You might be surprised. So first of all, this is a little bit of haul. This is a new bag that I got from a bag maker in the UK called Patchwork and Pawprint. I have one other bag of this gal's. She always has this really cool wooden button and very nice quality bags. But this, some of you might recognize, it's a fabric pattern that the French company Soie uses, and a design of these children in a parade wearing like some folk dress. That's a Soie pattern, and when I saw this one, I had to get it because I've got a couple of French things going on. So it became the bag, put it right into use for a French sampler. Again, you haven't seen it in a while. Antoinette, 1894 to 1896. Obviously a red sampler. And I have made some good progress on Antoinette. At least good for the amount of time that I spent with her. So let me wrangle my fabric here and show you. Here she is. Here is Antoinette. Now I'm going to give you a good view since you haven't seen her for a while. And down there at the bottom, those last three lines of alphabets, I've been working from the top two lines, the G's over, and in that very bottom very decorative alphabet, I did the E, F, and G. Now, those of you who have been with me for a while know that I've been struggling with this one. Not because of the fabric, 56 count. This is the one and only thing I'm working on, 56 count. Oh, yeah, that one was 40, not 46. I've got a couple of things coming up on 46. This is 56, called Shrekie's Tan. It's kind of a pinky tan color. And I'm using silk floss on this, the Overa Soie floss 103, the kind that comes on a spool. This is the color number 664. It's a really gorgeous, gorgeous red. I don't know if that's focusing. But, you know, I've been struggling with this floss, creating knots underneath my fabric. And I could be stitching along and not realize that it has twisted and knotted on the back. And you all have been so wonderful, giving me suggestions, helpful tips and hints. Let me get to where yeah, the G's over and E, F, and G there. Helpful tips and hints to try and help me with that floss. You know what helped the most? I used a new spool. So, I've talked to you before about a Facebook group that I'm a member of. I wrote it down, let me see. Our Sampler Years is the name of the Facebook group. It is comprised of a lot of people who have been stitching for a long time, who are sampler reproducers, like Nicola Parkman's in that group. My friend Rae is in that group. Krista Gramer, who is the moderator of the group, has been stitching. She is a reproductionist. There's a lady from Queenstown Sampler Guild in there, Gigi Reese from GGR, a lot of people. And the members too, very informed and experienced people to give advice. Somebody had written a post saying they were using this, I think, for the first time and were finding it a little challenging, just wanting some tips and tricks. And I think they also said something about knots, because that's, of course, what piqued my interest. So I watched the comments come in, and the recommendations are, you know, just words of wisdom from people. Somebody said, and I went and looked for this post again, I can't find it, but somebody said, you know, sometimes you'll get a spool that for whatever reason just gives you more knots than others. Try a new spool. Mind blown. I pulled out a new spool and started it. And you know what? She was right. Whoever wrote that, thank you. Because I got all of those done with very few knots. I could not believe how different my experience was just by using a new spool of this. Why? I don't know. I don't care. I mean, I kind of do, just because it was so challenging, you know, in the first place to do this. But I'm just glad that the resolution was so simple as using a new spool of floss. I have not had to condition my thread. I was using Thread Heaven conditioner. I liked that more than I liked beeswax. I thought beeswax, in order to make this knot, was making my thread kind of dull looking. Anyway, the solution for me accomplishing some progress, and progress that didn't feel like a lot of work, was to just get a new spool of floss. So anyway, that is Antoinette, 1894 to 1896. This is by a company called European Reproduction Samplers. It's a German company. Honestly, I don't know. For those of you who are in America or maybe in Britain, I know payments and shippings and tariffs and all of that stuff has just made getting things across countries and borders challenging. So I can't tell you how easily this is available. I can just say, go to the website, European Reproduction Samplers. I link it below, and just see about that. But anyway, I'm happy to be making progress once again on Antoinette. So my friend Renee, there you go. She loves this one. She said she always is happy when I show it, and she loves seeing me work on that one. So that's for you, Renee. And anybody else who maybe had been having some concerns about stitching with 100 threes. I know I was having them, so now maybe I won't have so much concern about trying something with 100 threes in the future. When I started that, I wasn't having trouble. It was just that one silly spool that caused me to have so many headaches, and I just kept trying and thinking, all right, obviously I'm doing something wrong with this. I'm going to keep going. Because it's a lovely sampler, and I loved all the alphabets in it. I didn't want to be struggling so with it, but I'm so glad I'm not any longer. So that's Antoinette. I have all my stuff on a chair right over here, just out of the camera. I'm just looking over here to see what's next. And I've got next a Quaker sampler to share with you. This one, I have some information also to share. Let me get it. Hold, please. Oh, wait, here I do have it. I was organized. I put the cool information in the bag. All right. So this sampler is called the Beatrix Potter Quaker sampler, and it's by a company called Stitchy Box. This is the sampler. Now this is the antique, not stitched by Beatrix Potter, but owned by her. And that's why it's referenced as the Beatrix Potter sampler. Unfortunately, from what I understand, people in Europe cannot get this right now. Again, that has to do with various reasons why people aren't shipping across borders. However, with that said, hopefully that will change. And you could get this again if you're outside of the United States. But let me show you. I ironed stuff today for you all because I had the iron out for Barbara Anna. I don't always, but here is my progress. So look, I'm at the bottom. And really the bottom is what I have been working on since I saw you last. Those 3 motifs right there I've done since I saw you last. But let's look at how beautiful the whole thing is. So that is the full now width and length of this. This is a 46 count fabric called Moon Shadow. It's by Seraphim. It's a lovely, creamy, light neutral. And I am using a variety of floss. Let me show you those. The called for color was a DMC color that was kind of a, actually it was one of those terracotta ones in America 250. I wasn't feeling that color overall for a sampler. And also, when I look at that picture, it looks gold to me. So I think that influenced me to choose this gold color palette. Now I just went to my floss stash and I pulled everything out that was in the same kind of family. So you can see DMCs. I'm a bobbinator. I've got overdyed cottons, overdyed silks as well in this palette. And I have just been picking them as I go along. Obviously now I'm getting more of it filled in. I've pretty well got my palette established. There are some colors that I have on here that I have not used yet, and I may or may not yet. So that's why I'm leaving them all on here. There is one very light color in here that I'm using because there is kind of a creamy white called for in some flowers. So I'm using this Classic Colorworks Wasabi. Some people have asked me my colors. I have posted these on my Instagram page, but I've got Simply Shaker Heirloom Gold, Classic Colorworks, Ye Old Gold. That one I haven't used. I've got like 2 or 3 different dye lots of Heirloom Gold, so they're all giving me a different vibe when I use it. Floss, let's see, what have I got here in my floss away? Dinky Dye's color called Kobar. I love that one. I've got, as I said, the different DMCs, 3828, 832, 3045. I have that Wasabi. I've got a color and cotton color called Turmeric. Got an Anchor 907. It's a very yellowy gold. Got a Belle Soie silk called Scarecrow. I have got a Belle Soie silk called Teddy Bear. I have another, a Gloriana that was recently given to me called Italian Gold. I haven't used that one yet, but that one's coming up. Anyway, those are my colors. Beautiful Quaker sampler. And as I said, I'm in the lower bits of it now. So if you've been here before, I have been really enjoying learning more about Beatrix Potter as this has gone along. Looked at some documentaries on YouTube. Got some books about her, a couple of biographies. I've got a book of her art that was from an exhibition. But Saturday, I said I had some great conversations last weekend. Last Saturday, one of you guys who watches me and follows me on Instagram, reached out to me and said, you have got to watch Nicola Parkman's latest YouTube video where she's talking to her friend Sandra, and they mention and talk a little bit briefly about the Beatrix Potter sampler. So I usually watch Nicola on Sunday mornings with my coffee, but she became a Saturday. I watched her Saturday evening because I wanted to see what the conversation was. Now, Sandra, as it turns out, is, a good friend of Nicola. She was staying with Nicola for some time after the Swindon retreat. And apparently, Hands Across the Sea samplers came into existence because of a conversation with Sandra. So we have Sandra to thank as part of the origin of Hands Across the Sea samplers. And Sandra had been to the Hilltop house where Beatrix Potter's farm in Yorkshire, and she saw that sampler. And they were talking about how that sampler was really sort of instrumental in helping preserve Ackworth samplers as we know them. And they were just getting into that conversation in the video, and then they kind of veered off on another topic. So I thought, oh, wait, come back. I want to hear more about this. So I reached out to Nicola Parkman, sent her a message on Instagram to see if she could share more with me about that. So I'm going to read to you what I was able to learn. So these are the words from Sandra. And she says, I can't remember the year exactly, but it was before sampler reproductions became very big because of the internet. So it was before they were popularized by the internet. So probably in the early 2000s, a woman named Jacqueline Holdsworth, which had the company that originally published the Beatrix Potter sampler, was called Needleprint. So this was probably in the early 2000s. Jacqueline Holdsworth was, if Sandra could remember correctly, a software designer who was interested in antique samplers. One day Jacqueline went to Beatrix Potter's house at Hilltop and fell in love with a sampler that was hanging on a wall in the bedroom. She did some research and discovered that it was a Quaker sampler, and that there was a Quaker school named Ackworth in Yorkshire near where she lived. So Jacqueline received permission from the National Trust, and it's the National Trust who takes care of that property. So she received permission from the National Trust to chart and publish the Beatrix Potter sampler. So we have Jacqueline Holdsworth to thank for that. But she also received permission from Ackworth School at that time to chart some of the motifs that we find in other Ackworth samplers. So from that, Jacqueline went on to produce 2 books. I would love to find them. I'm going to pop some pictures up. One was an engagement diary that was kind of a perpetual thing for any year, and the other was a hardcover spiral-bound book featuring 1 motif per page. The idea was that any money that was raised from the sales of these 2 books would go towards conserving the Ackworth collection of samplers, which it did. So the sampler at Hilltop, as I said, it was not stitched by Beatrix, but it is thought to be either a gift to her, or maybe she purchased it because she had a great love of antiques. And Needleprint Designs, as I said, being the original publisher of that chart, also produced another Quaker sampler known as the Beatrix Potter Companion, as well as another popular one called Sarah Moon. And all of those contributed to the conservation of Ackworth samplers as we know them. So this Beatrix Potter sampler goes back to the beginning of our understanding and interest and the publishing of and knowledge of Ackworth and other Quaker samplers. I just love knowing that, and to know that I'm working on something now, even more, that something that has such history to it. I mean, if you've been here before, you know I love the history of these things. That's why I enjoy them so much, is that connection to history. But when I can find out even more information about what makes one of these designs I'm working on that much more special, I mean, that's just awesome for me. It just really deepens and enriches the experience so much. So thank you, Nicola, for that information. Thank you, Sandra, for sharing. Thank you, Beatrix, for loving this sampler, and Jacqueline Holdsworth, whoever you are. I wish I knew you so I could say thank you to you. So anyway, that's my Beatrix Potter Quaker. Still loving this one. Hold it up for you again. It has even more meaning now. Love, love, love it. So 46 count, as I said, that's one floss thread over 2 linen threads. DMC overdyed silk and cotton on that one. Isn't that cool? Just cool. I love filling out the stories of these things. Oh my gosh, it's just amazing to me. What we can still learn. Yeah? What we can still learn. Move these threads out of the way. So after that, wow. I mean, again, like I said, that conversation happened last weekend. That was very cool. Conversation with Rae happened last weekend. Very cool. Moving on. The one thing I've worked on now that I haven't shown you yet, it has the most like story now about, I mean, for me, not necessarily story about its origin. Just looking out, it's getting awfully cloudy out there. I think we're still okay with the lighting. It looks pretty good on the camera. Is a French sampler that I started as a birthday start. So this one is in a bag by Pinny and Tunny. Oh, I didn't tell you. Beatrix Potter is in a Stitch Folk bag. This one, I think this is a Kathy Holden, one of her flea market line. It just, to me, because this sampler has a lot of flowers and birds in it, I felt like this was a terrific bag for this. So I showed you this last time I started on this. The Reflets de Soie design called Lea Letourneur by Reflets de Soie. Beautiful, beautiful French sampler full of gorgeous alphabets and motifs. In fact, it's packed with beauty. I pulled the DMC conversion because this is the list of colors. There are 34 different colors here. And I'll show you, this is my box. It's like a box of crayons. These are all of the DMCs plus a few more. And then I had shown you last time that I had also gotten several silks, NPI silks, from my friend Gretchen at Florilegium to kind of fill out some of the colors that I just felt like the DMC colors some of the tones that I wanted, or some of the paler colors that I could see were in this design. I just felt like the DMC was lacking a little bit. So I pulled a bunch of NPIs. I don't have them here today. They're in my studio back there. So I started Lea Letourneur with those. And I just felt like I was struggling. So this is again gonna go to sort of the color discussion that I wanna flesh out a little bit. Why do I choose to do a conversion? Sometimes, like in this case, I was starting with the DMCs that they were accessible. I had all the colors except for like maybe 2. They're affordable. It was charted in both DMC and Soie d'Alger silks, which I had none of and I didn't have access to. So what I had access to were DMCs and NPIs. They're right downstairs in the shop, right downstairs. And I started this and I was struggling with it. Which, so if I'm struggling with it, I mean, I'm stitching on 46 count. I'm going to show you here in a sec. So I'm not struggling because of that. I was struggling with the colors. Now, don't get me wrong. You can see in this box, it's like a box of crayons. They're beautiful. But for some reason, some of them were not working for me. Namely, this one, 816, and this one, 728. There might have been a couple more, but these 2 were the big ones. Oh, wait, let me find that. This one also, 3064. I just wasn't liking them, this one especially. It's showing up beautifully on camera. It's fuchsia in the order of my shirt. But I'm telling you, when I was stitching with it, it was absorbing light and it just looked, I have a visceral reaction to color. I have mentioned my friend Renee, and I was talking to her about it. She said, I don't know anybody, Jackie, who has a visceral reaction to color like you do. But I just was not liking that color, and it actually shows up a lot in the sampler. So I thought, what am I gonna do? I made the decision to purchase the Soie d'Alger's. I know that not everybody can do that. They're a significant investment. Silk is expensive. But I got on to 123 Stitch and ordered them. And I'm glad I did. I'm going to show you. Look at these colors. They're beautiful. I have put them on, I've just made kind of floss drops for them with some excess bobbins that I had. I just poked holes in them. And I've got a few extra skeins because these skeins of floss are 5 meters. And the wonderful thing about this Reflets swatch chart is it tells you the length of thread that you need to do this. It's charted on 40 count, so it gives you the length of floss you need. And some of the colors need like 6 meters and 7 meters and the full 5 meters. So I got a few of those extra, not knowing whether or not I will need all of that, but I've got them. And if I don't use them, I've got stash, because again, most of the skein's going to be used up by the chart. So I ended up restarting her. And here she is so far. So I'm in the top center. Let me see. Now it may or may not look a whole lot different to you from what you saw before, but I'm telling you it is. And it is now working for me in a way that it wasn't before. And one of the reasons I think it wasn't working before is because being charted in Soie d'Alger. Soie d'Alger has 620 colors in their color range. DMC, while it's extensive, has 500. So some of the colors in Lea Letourneur were not available in DMC. Some of the paler ones that are already appearing in the top of this sampler. So again, for some of you, I know particularly 2 good friends of mine are working the DMCs in this. They're very happy with them. And I'm happy for you who are all doing it and liking them. This is just me, the real particularities of me. If something is not working for me, for whatever reason, if I feel things in my body, which I think we all do. We have colors that are favorites of ours. We gravitate to them for a reason. We are repelled by colors for other reasons. You have a physical reaction to it. I just happen to have lived with that kind of reaction long enough to be able to recognize it well enough to know that if something's not working for me, I need to do something different. So one of those things for me was changing the floss and going to the called for. So this, as I said, is being stitched on 46 count. This is a color in cotton fabric called Treasure Map with the called for soie d'Alger. Now, one of the things at the beginning of the process why I didn't just buy these outright at the beginning is because I had read before that soie d'Alger, you could not use those on 46 count fabric. They just would not work. They're too thick. Well, I'm here to tell you, you can. So it's like the cross stitch police, you know, came out to say, you can't do that. Actually, you can. And I think why I first thought, okay, maybe I can, is because of that Beatrix Potter sampler. I'm using, like I said, DMC's overdyed cotton and overdyed silk on 46 count. And I like the way it looks. The stitches sit up on the fabric in a way that makes them really stand out and reflect the light. And I had read that the DMC, the soie d'Alger, just slightly thicker than DMC. And I would say that that's accurate. One description I read about it said that maybe it was like a 1.5 thickness. I don't think it's that thick. I know it's like tiny. You can't see that. This is stranded floss in the same way that DMC is. There are 7 strands together here. You all know that to pat your thread like that, it separates them, right? There are 7 strands on this. It is slightly thicker than the DMC. So if you are a person who prefers your stitches to really settle in onto and into your linen, this is going to be too thick for you. But what I love about this actually was how much these stitches are standing up on this. I'm hoping that the camera is picking that up. If we had better light today, you would see those stitches shine. This silk is the shiniest I have experienced. They're like, and Carolyn actually said this in her video today, Theresa Venette's new design that I mentioned to you is stitched and charted in soie d'Alger, said that they're like little jewels on the fabric, and that they are. It looks to me like little tiny beads on there, and I have done beadwork in the past. I love it. I really love it now. So basically, I have redone this since you've seen it last. So I had, when you saw it last, the center and this side done to that point. And since I've seen you last, I redid those and added that, which is basically a mirror image. So I had really a great discussion last Saturday with Gretchen downstairs at Florilegium about color and how we respond to color. She had seen, obviously, what I had done prior to getting the silks. The soie d'Alger silks, she has NPIs in her stock. She has Thread Gatherer Silken Colors in her store. She has been considering getting in soie d'Algers, and so I wanted her to see the skeins and the how they were stitching on my linen. And I don't know if she hasn't told me if she's going to get them yet. It'd be great if she did. But anyway, when I showed her my redo of this, she had an immediate reaction to it. She reacts in response to color similarly to me. She said, "Oh my gosh, Jackie, there is a delicacy to it now that she hadn't experienced with it before." And I said, well, that's very interesting because I've had a learning curve with these silks. And I said, I feel like they are more delicate than other threads that I've used thus far. And why I think that is because it's similar to DMC, is that might be your experience, or overdyed cotton, for instance. There is, within the strand, there are two strands together, wound together. And again, I doubt maybe you can see that. And they are slightly fuzzier than anything else that I've used, which some people don't like. I've heard people talking about Soie d'Alger being fuzzy. I don't mind it. I don't see it when I have it stitched in my project. But because those two strands are wound together to make the one that you stitch with, stitching with them, they start to unwind a little bit. And it seems like they unwind a little faster than any other floss that I've used thus far. That also could be contributed to by the fact that I'm stitching on 46 count. So they are being affected by the size of the holes. I'm having to stitch with much shorter lengths than I stitch with, or it starts to abrade and come apart more. And then the stitches look fatter if those two strands start to unwind from each other too much. So I'm stitching with pretty short lengths, probably. So I've wound these, as you see, and then I'm cutting that in half. So each of these are probably 8 to 10 inches long. That's the length I'm stitching with, which if I were stitching long, like borders or large areas of colors, would drive me nuts to have to change needle or thread my needle so often. But since I'm changing colors so frequently in this, shorter lengths is not a problem at all. I'm only using a very short length at a time anyway, because the areas are small. So a little bit of a learning curve, as I said. I'm also taking some advice from ladies in that our Sampler Years Facebook group. When you're using a tighter weave linen, like this is 48 count, in order so that the linen does not abrade, if you will, your floss, you want to make sure your hole is open, and that's what the needle is for, to open the hole so that your thread can pass through. Yeah, that's obvious. But I'm using actually a bigger needle than I otherwise might for this. Usually when I'm stitching on 40 count and above, I'm using a size 28 needle. My needles of choice are Colonial Petites. I use a size 28 for almost everything. In this case, I invested in a package of size 26 needles. They've got a noticeably larger eye. They're hanging over here. I have them stuck here to a Scotty needle minder. That's the needles. Looks like any other needle, but I wonder if you can see the difference. So on this needle minder, I've got the 28s. I don't know if we're focusing or not. I hope so. And on this needle minder, I've got the 26s. They have a bigger eye. And so they're opening the holes more so that the silk can go through with the least amount of connection with the linen, so thereby minimizing the amount of contact the thread makes with the linen threads. It's not eliminating it completely, because by the time I'm done with my little 8-inch length of floss, the ends, just from, you know, pulling them through the holes, my hands touching them, are starting to unwind a little bit. But I feel like this whole, you know, for those of you who don't know, maybe newer today, I've just come back to stitching since 2023. Did it when I was much younger, like a lot of people did. And I'm coming back to this. I'd never experienced up until this project Soie d'Alger silks before. So there's going to be a learning curve to it. At first, I didn't like them. I kept going because I've got a big sampler I'm using them for. Big sampler. I needed to get used to them, and now I love them. But again, like I started out this little section of the conversation saying, my friend Gretchen said there's just a delicacy to them in the colors she was seeing, and she was responding to also the paler colors, which, as I said, just are not in DMC. There are, again, I don't want to give the impression that the DMC conversion is not good. It is. For my eye, it was lacking, and I needed something different. I needed those 120 colors from the DMC 500 colors palette to Soie d'Alger 620. In that 120 colors, there's more variety, and I needed that in order for me, just for me, to be satisfied with what I'm doing here. It's really all about you and your experience. And the cross-stitch police were wrong about 46 count and Soie d'Alger. Yes, you can stitch with it. It's just, do you prefer the result? Because you could stitch with any thread on any fabric. Do you prefer the result? That's the important thing. Do you like what you're left with? If I didn't like this, I wouldn't continue with it. I would have to ditch it and start over, but I do like it, so I'm going to continue. It also kind of reminds me of, because those stitches stand out so much, see the texture? Really, in natural light, you get a lot of sheen. They add to the texture. So our stitching is actually three-dimensional. And I mentioned Theresa Venette a couple of times. In that retreat, she said that's actually one of the main contributing factors to why it's so challenging to photograph stitching, is because it's three-dimensional and it reflects light. It makes shadows. But I like that about this thread on 46 count linen. It has just a really interesting look and reminds me of some antique samplers that I've seen that use, you know, those girls were using the thread that they had available. Maybe they were lucky enough to have silk available to them. Some of them were stitching with wool, which is thick, on fabric that had larger holes, but in some cases, they were stitching on wool that wasn't necessarily befitting the size of linen they had, and they got these enormous fat stitches. That's what they got. That's what they were doing. And so in a way, fat stitches on 46 count, fat stitches. But it makes me feel like I'm doing something that maybe is a little more old-fashioned. So anyway, that's my story about Lea Letourneur and color. And why, or what I might think about if I'm going to do a conversion or not do a conversion. Are my materials working for me? So that adds another layer. Are my materials working for me? How am I feeling about the experience that I'm having using them? And in this case, I wasn't having a good experience. So there's that. When I was in this really amazing conversation with my friend Gretchen about color, she said that that's one of the biggest challenges that her customers also have. they're not confident about color. And so consequently, she's having to help people choose floss and yarn. Her store has a lot of yarn. She caters to knitters, crocheters, and needlepoint enthusiasts, as well as people who do some needlework. We're slowly getting her to cross stitch, guys. We're not quite there yet, but she said, you know, Jackie, having been exposed to just the things that I've shown her with regard to cross stitch and that we've talked about, as well as the people who have come to the stitch days that I've hosted there, and seeing the breadth of designs that are available in cross stitch. She had no idea that there was that much there. She too would have been exposed to cross stitching in the 80s and 90s and just felt like it was all, you know, just not quite her style or not what she was interested in. And she's now, through us exposing her to different things, she's now become more aware that there is this whole large world that cross-stitching encompasses, from the very beautiful French samplers like Lea Letourneur to something more basic. And even the monochromatic, she's seen my Beatrix Potter sampler and really finds it quite beautiful. So might not be her style, but she can understand better what we might be receiving from this hobby that she's just becoming way more exposed to now because of our cross-stitch community, talking to her and coming to her store. But so we were talking, she had just gotten this really interesting new product in that she hopes will be helpful to some of her customers who might be interested, and that's called this Palette Scout. So this is a box of, it's like, oh, what did we have when we were in school? You know, flashcards. It's similar to flashcards because in this box is this whole box of cards, and there are all of these. I'm not going to take them all out. She's letting me borrow this. There are all these color swatches here. This is just part of them. And we'll just take this one, purple, for instance. On the one side, it's a more pure representation of a color. And on the other side, it's a tint of the color. And so this is just one palette. You can see, whoo, bright. And there's a tint on the back. And then there are, this is kind of the palette that's in here with tints of that. And there are some little suggestions of how you might put the colors together. So if you ever heard of or know what a color wheel is, you know that each color has a complement. Each color has a analogous color to it, which are the colors on either side of it. There are tertiary colors. There are, this shows split complement here and monochromatic. Focus for me, please. And so all of these box comes with these little like learning lessons you could do, as well as just kind of describing to you. I mean, here's a color wheel, talks about value, intensity, color terms, hue, value, intensity, tint, shade, tone, and proportionality. These are all things that I learned in art school. I've forgotten most of them because my gut tells me what's working and not. And so they're just little experiment hints then that you can do with these. You can, you know, pick some colors out and just see, put them together and see, do you like them? Do you not like them? Play with them, see what you like. Gretchen and I were having fun going through all of these. And then there's this also complimentary toolkit box, the Palette Scout toolkit, that has like a lot of practice suggestions in them, like lay out a color relativity experiment, place this one next to that one, next to that one, and put a white card in between them and see how putting white near them changes them. Because what you put next to each card or putting white with it changes how we perceive it. The colors you have around you change how you perceive them. I had my Lea Letourneur, which in my apartment, I mean, it's a sampler gold color, but in my apartment, it tends to look slightly olivey. I see more green. And when I took it downstairs to Gretchen's shop, in the room we were sitting in, which has yellow walls, this really beautiful buttery yellow, and that space was full of windows, and it was a sunny day, she said, "Oh, that linen is so beautiful. It looks kind of like it has a pink tone to it." And I said, "Pink? Up in my apartment, it looks green." So anyway, we were just really having this amazing conversation about color. And I know some of you watch Sherry, the Colorado Cross Stitcher. She has a great FlossTube channel and shop, online shop and brick and mortar store. She talks about color a lot. She talks about cool colors, warm colors, how you know, what's the difference? This is a cool color that I've got on. This, warm color, cool, warm. That's kind of obvious, yellow, warm in comparison. But within that, I could have a different pink on that leaned more warm, peachier. Anyway, so explore, experiment. Don't be afraid of color. You might be afraid that you've invested time or maybe resources and what you do might not look good. Don't let that stop you from exploring and playing a little bit. And maybe a tool like this, Palette Scout, or there are others. I noticed when I was Googling a little bit, there are other color swatch cards to help you learn color theory. I can't speak about it as an instructor would because, again, my reactions to color are very physical and what looks good to my eye, but it's from 60 plus years of observing it and looking at it and just kind of instinctively knowing what works and what doesn't. Yours is not going to be the same, obviously, but there are tools that might help you or work with somebody who you trust that knows about color and could help you. But if experiment, play. I think it's great that people are putting together tools like these to help educate people to feel more confident about color, if that's something that you want more of in your life or to want to feel like you can be more confident about. So, I mean, Gretchen didn't ask me to show these to you. I just felt like it was a really interesting conversation and a way to learn more about color. She does have these for sale in her shop, Florilegium.com. You can buy them from her. They're also at other online retailers. But if that's something you're interested in, each of these boxes was $30, which for what you get and the infinite amount of ways you could put this to use, I think is a pretty good value. So there is that. So that was Lea Letourneur. The other question I got asked this time, and I'm mindful of my time, I don't want to go real long. Those were my acquisitions, the Patchwork and Pawprint bag and my investment in the silks were my haul this week. But the other question I got asked by someone was, can you talk more about how you alter charts? What I didn't tell you about the Lea Letourneur, I mentioned it last time, is that I've altered this chart a bit. When you see me stitch it, I have opened up these two borders a little bit. I moved each of them out. Really just one stitch. When you see it, it's not going to be a lot, but it's two stitches. The spaciousness you will notice. And then I opened up this border some. For the most part, I took out one of these and made these spaced a little farther apart. I extended a stem. It changes where these moths, butterflies are going to be positioned. I moved them up a little bit. I'm filling this space up a little bit. I moved this up. I've changed the curvature on this ever so slightly. Anyway, I think me talking about that caused someone to ask me, how do I do that? How do I do that? And I think what she meant is the practical nature of it. How do I do that? Oh, the sun's going to come out. Anyway, I'm a person who uses paper charts. I've done arts and crafts all my life, so I'm comfortable with paper. I've been a professional artist. I worked for Hallmark and Mary Engelbright. Before the age of computers, I'm comfortable using pencils, scissors, tape, paint. I'm just comfortable with all of that. That's my comfort zone. Computer programs, not so much. But so how I do it is, first of all, I photocopy the chart, generally twice, because one of them is going to be my ground that I'm going to then put stuff on top of that I have cut apart. And I thought it's always a little challenging when we film floss tubes. We're all concerned about copyrights. So it's challenging to show you a chart to be able to talk about this. But I pulled out my chart for the very first thing that I stitched was Consider the Lilies. Oh, look at that light come up now. So some of you have seen it. This is the design, and I redesigned it. So I'm going to put that up here. I altered, obviously, that a lot. And I didn't start out that way. It just ended that way. And it reflects my family. And because I have altered it so much, I thought it might be one that would be okay to show you sections of. So in the center is an Adam and Eve. I changed that to be two different figures that were my grandparents. I altered the tree quite a bit. I put apples and pears in it and peaches. I made the dog into a border collie. I put some chickens in there. So I'm going to show you this. If you see, it's been folded up and in an envelope for a while. You can see I colored things on graph paper. I cut them apart, taped them, used white paint. You can see white paint. I whited some things out, put some things in. If I didn't like the placement, I whited it out and placed it. There's the dog. So you can see up here, I put that sun in. Over here, I changed coloration. I made these bachelor buttons. I totally drew this Indian paintbrush. This section, the bottom, I did a lot. You can see I came up with that pheasant, those hollyhocks, the cardinal up here, So basically what I do, graph paper. I use graph paper. I try and put it on a copy machine and proportionately make the graph paper the same size as the chart. Sometimes the chart will have enough blank space in it that I can see the graph, and I will photocopy that and tape it together. That's extreme, but that's what I do to get it to be the right size that I can start altering things. I white things out, I draw things, I tape them down, I color them, recolor them, and that's how I'm altering the chart. So for Lea Letourneur, for instance, I'm going to put a picture up here. I put this on Instagram. You can see it's all over my floor. So I taped together the whole chart that I have photocopied. The parts that I'm gonna change, I start cutting them apart. So I've made 2 copies. In some cases, I ended up making a 3rd one of some areas that I wanna change. I cut them apart, I move them around, I lay them down. I might put a little piece of tape on just if I'm putting something and it might be a temporary placement. If it looks right, if it feels right, I put more tape on it. That's where it's gonna stay. If I say, for instance, I said on the flower border, I extended the stems, I'm actually drawing right on the graph paper with a colored pencil or a marker and putting a stem there. I ended up moving the top flower up 1 stitch, so I had to cut that apart, move it up, put a stitch in, a color in there to make sure it was gonna look good. The, so I've got all this paper around me now. The, I think I can safely show you a section of it here. You can see what I've done here. This is the border. It's pieced together. It's moved. That central flower, I moved it. I had to take off some of these little side flowers to fit the space. I whited them out. I cut them off and whited them out. Down here at the bottom, this is what I was looking for. So, you know, it's big. It's like an old-fashioned state map, which I still use, by the way. I love maps. That bottom motif, changed it. So I just thinned out the curve, changed the curve, added a stitch here, took away one there. I'm a designer at heart, you guys. It's just what I do. If it doesn't work for my eye, if it doesn't feel balanced, if altering something a little bit would make my experience of it better, enhance it more comfortable, whatever, I probably will do it. Not with everything. I mean, it's just really, it's like each individual project is its own new thing. So I hope that helps the person who asked me that. It's like scrapbooking, you know, you move things around, you cut things apart, you place them down. If it doesn't work, you move it, take it apart again, put it down. It's paper, it's scissors, it's arts and crafts. And for me, it's fun. So it might not be for everybody. And I know some people just change things as they are stitching. That would not work for me. I need to know before I ever put my needle and thread into my fabric that I've got the design balanced and working, because I don't enjoy taking stitches out. It's even harder to take a bunch out on 46 count. Wasn't fun. I did it carefully. I didn't want to ruin the fabric. None of us like to frog things. So anyway, that's my process. Color, design. If I can help you, if I can elaborate, if you need more information, like I said, I'm happy to help. If me sharing about this helps you just maybe even take a step towards doing something like that, I'm glad. I'm glad. I hope you will. And if I can help you, I would be happy to. So let me take a look. It was long-winded. I didn't expect to go so long again, but you know, as usual, I get up to about a minute or an hour, 45, 50. That's my time. So I just want to look at my notes and want to make sure. Oh, I mentioned last time we were doing another Stitch With Me gathering at Florilegium on November 22nd. It's full. I had a few names on the wait list, and all of them now have been contacted. You got space. But if anybody else wants to be on the wait list, there's still a couple of weeks to go. Somebody might get sick or not be able to come. It's a free event, but I am limited by the amount of space that we have in Florilegium in Weston, Missouri. We have 25 seats, 26 we're going to squeeze in. And snacks will be available. We're starting at 10 if you're coming. Please bring what you're working on and some finishes or just things in progress to share. We had a show and share table last time and everybody loved it. So much inspiration there. There are plenty of restaurants in town for places to get lunch, but Gretchen and her husband Fred know how to have a snack table. There's plenty of food, always plenty of food. As far as plans go, that is one of them. I also, I don't know, I know everybody is starting to get in the mood for holiday stitching. So far, I have not been a holiday stitcher. That might be because I don't necessarily decorate for holidays. My apartment is decorated pretty much the way it stays all year round. I do have a little imitation feather tree with some antique ornaments that are family heirlooms and some blown glass antiques that I have found over the years that I'll put out. But I did see, again, it goes down to sign up for newsletters from your favorite shops. This week, the Country Sampler newsletter came out, and I saw a really cute holiday stitch. It was a chart by Artful Offerings called Chili Cardinals. I'm gonna put it up here. Cardinals were forever and always remind me of my mother and father, but they were both bird watchers and always had binoculars by the dining room table, which was attached to our kitchen. Outside, they fed birds and by extension, squirrels. The bane of my dad's existence were squirrels, but we always were a family who knew about birds, watched birds, and my mom loved cardinals. And I know a lot of people think about cardinals as being messengers after someone has passed, so they just remind me of my mom. So I ordered that right away from Country Sampler, as well as another bird chart that they had. So I'm looking forward to that coming and starting on that one. But otherwise, I don't really have any holiday stitch plans. I've got a lot of really fun things that I'm enjoying stitching, so I'm not likely to put any of them away anytime soon. So I hope you're okay still seeing the same old, same old. Eventually I'll finish something again. I don't have anything remotely close to finishing now, so we'll just see how it goes and what I might decide to start beyond what I've already got going on. Looking around the room, it always is an interesting mess around me. I imagine everybody else when they do a floss tube, because you start out with all this organization, everything piled. I want to talk about this and then this and then this. I do have a plan when I start. Kind of veer off of it, but I've pretty much covered everything that I wanted to. So with that, I want to thank you for being here today, for listening to my ramblings, having a talk with me. I hope the conversations that I have found so enriching with my friends and that I have shared some of with you have enriched your experience today and got you maybe thinking about trying a different floss or a color combination or altering a chart. If you've been thinking about it, try it. It's just paper, tape. I know it's any resource we have right now is valuable, but in the grand scheme of things, why not? Why not? So I'm going to end today with just the meta prayer. I know it's a challenging time for a lot of people. There are a lot of people who have been laid off work due to government shutdown in this country. Some benefits that they're used to receiving in limbo right now. Things being challenging, painful. We have to find joy and beauty where we can. And our stitching is a place that is so accessible for us to find that. Don't feel guilty about it if you do. I mean, I went through that. Should I be enjoying this? Should I be buying floss right now when other people can't even afford to eat? I'm in a position where I can. So I'm going to enhance my life in the ways that I can so that I can have the peace of mind and be able to communicate and hopefully bring some brightness and maybe a ray of light to somebody's life whose paths I cross during each day at the place that I work. And if you're viewing this video, I hope I've given you some comfort today or a new perspective. But I'm going to end today with the meta prayer. I frequently share this with you. I think it's very useful to help us be more grounded, to realize that the only thing we have control over is our present moment. And we're so often looking to the future or looking behind us, being afraid of what might be coming or wondering wishing we had maybe handled something else differently in the past, whatever. But the meta prayer and our breath, and our stitching for that matter, keeps us in present time. So let's take a deep breath. Settle into your chair and into your space. These might be the only deep breaths you take today, so let's take another one. And even one more. I will tell you that just pausing for 3 deep breaths is enough to make a difference for you physiologically. So, may we be at peace. May we be at ease. May we be safe. May we be happy. May we know the beauty of our own true nature. May we be healed. And may we be a source for healing in the world. Thank you so much for what you bring to my world, for the joy and the color that you bring to my life. It is so much richer for having the experience of sitting down and chatting with you every 3 or 4 weeks. The things that you share with me, having conversations that really do enrich and bring beauty and joy to my world. So thank you. Thanks for being here. I look forward to seeing you soon. It'll be in about 3 weeks, which will be after the Stitch With Me Day, so I'll get to share that experience with you. And if you're coming, I'm looking forward to seeing you. And if you can't, because you're too far away or the schedule didn't work, hopefully you can in the future. We do plan on doing this again in these events again in 2026. So who knows what's going to happen, right? Every day is an opportunity. Every moment is an opportunity. So thank you all so much. Namaste. See you next time.